Hello, everyone. Welcome to Their Journey, a sit down with the National Digest. I'm your host, Eric Mastrota, and today I have the pleasure of once again speaking with Joan Gillman, an established educator who utilizes interdisciplinary learning to create a classroom environment where the lessons aren't just about putting pen to paper while the teacher lectures, but instead are about getting really involved through hands-on methods and engulfing yourself in new material. Today, we're going to dive even further into what that truly looks like and how Joan is able to continuously motivate her students to love the process of learning. Hi, Joan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. And how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Before we've talked about the intricacies of interdisciplinary learning, which listeners can hear more about in our previous podcast and articles together, but just for the sake of getting us started today, can you give us a quick rundown of what that really entails?
Well, I'm really hoping in the future that interdisciplinary curriculums will be one that is not isolated, but is found in many schools. In my science classes, students not only learn about science skills, but I try to tie all of the different disciplines together. In that way, learning doesn't take place in isolation, and students see a connection between the disciplines. And if you think about it, that's really the way life works.
Mm.
To give you a couple of ideas, um, I like with our grade 4 astronomy unit, we do a whole exploration of rocket building. So this is not only going to involve engineering skills, there's going to be math skills involved, some artistic drawing. For example, the students have to work with different variables. They have a straw and they can make it between 10 and 20 centimeters. The fins have to be between 2 and 5 of them, and then the nose cone needs to have a diameter no bigger than 2 centimeters. Finally, they have to decide on what angles they want to launch the rocket because we're trying to go for maximum distance. Well, the students take out their pencil and pen and rulers and they actually draw it right into their notebooks, putting the exact measurements. For the fins, they have to measure every single side. For
Mhm.
the nose cone, they have to show the diameter to be at least 2 centimeters or less, and then they list their launch angles. From there, we start building the rockets. Once the rockets are built, they're going to either use a triple beam balance or they're going to use an electronic scale to find the mass. When that's all done, we have to head outside and hope for a day with no wind, as I call wind variable that must not be named,
Right.
because these rockets only weigh a few grams. So we head outside, we put out a huge measuring cord down the block, down 62nd Street, and the students launch them. They use their 3 launch angles, they go outside, they put the measurement for each distance they traveled for each different angle, and then we head inside, and we don't leave it at that.
Mm.
Now comes the analysis part. Which rockets flew the furthest distance? Which rockets went right down? And we start looking what size nose cone seemed to be the optimum size. What length of rocket seemed to go further? What about mass? So we look at also the number of fins. So we look at all of the different variables we talked about earlier. The students see which type of rocket flew the furthest, and they get to redesign their rocket.
Mm.
And this is really important because you don't want to leave it, oh my God, okay, it was a real big failure. That's it, next time. But you want the students to learn and then try to apply what they learned to improve their design. And when we do this a second time, what's really interesting is that almost 100% the students are going to have much more success.
Right.
And it's really great. In terms of also interdisciplinary with the unit on astronomy, we also look at how a star was born. We look at constellations. And in most schools, they'll talk about, okay, the Greek constellation myths. I don't stop with that. There are wonderful myths with the same constellation, but coming from the Iroquois, the Paiute, the Pawnee, Blackfoot, Aztec, Nordic myths,
Mm.
Arabic myths, Celts of England, Wales. So the students get a chance to hear from different cultures of how they saw the constellations. From there, using again artistic skills and writing skills, the students will design their own constellation. I give them up to about 16 stars. They place them on a piece of black paper. They use a white pencil to outline everything. And then they write a constellation tale to explain the origin. And they can choose to do it in the style of a Greek myth. They could do it as a Native American myth, one from Wales. It's up to them.
Mm.
And again, they're using their writing skills right there. And we've put in some history with some English. It's all tying together right here in science.
Mm.
And to make it, if you want to make it a little bit more challenging for those students who are ready for it, we will look at star charts. And they can use those star charts to actually connect the stars that are in actual existence and use that to make their own constellation. One of the most fun things I think is when I ask the students, I choose about 20 different constellations and the names, and they have to match up the names with the constellations.
Mm.
And boy, do they realize after a while, those ancient people had quite a vivid imagination. Because it's like, how is that called that?
Mm.
So much fun.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of this hands-on learning, something we've also spoken about before is how it's something that you experienced a lot growing up, both in and out of the classroom. So I'm wondering if you could take me through one of the lessons that you've enjoyed in the past or even recently that really takes on that hands-on approach.
Oh, I think I'm going to go to my second grade lesson on bridges. Well, we usually begin with the phenomena of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the designers made it so there would be some movement, but unfortunately, there was way too much movement. The bridge itself got the nickname of Galloping Gertie for a good reason. And probably not even, it was less than a year after it was built, there were 40-mile-an-hour winds. And I don't know how they got the footage, but they have the actual footage of that day with the bridge swaying back and forth and twisting and turning, and the entire thing collapses. And the students are like, oh my gosh. Well, I use this as our phenomenon to tell them even professional bridge builders make mistakes. Because here we are, the students are going to now learn about 6 different bridge types. We go from arch, beam, truss, cantilever, um, suspension, and this one, I don't know, I'm just taking a break, and cable stay. That was the other one. And we learn about the pros and cons of each bridge, where they're fine. And again, this is wonderful because we show bridges from around the world, and you have students. It's really a lot of students who are parents or grandparents, or even they have come from other countries, and they love seeing these bridges that they've seen in childhood, or then when they visited relatives, it's like, oh my gosh, I know that bridge, I've been on it.
Right.
We learn about the pros and cons of each type of bridge, and then the students have to decide which one they're going to build. I send a note home asking for recyclables, and boy, they're very good, the parents, about this.
Yeah.
My poor room turns into the Great American Recycle Center with boxes and empty toilet paper rolls and soda cans and milk cartons, you name it, ribbons. And they are going to use this to design the bridge. So the story is this: you've got 4 elephants, mommy, daddy, and 2 babies, and they're out for a walk. And somehow the 2 babies get way ahead. I kind of kid with the kids. Yeah, the parents were too busy texting. And the 2 babies cross the bridge, realize when they turn around that mommy and daddy are not there, and they call out, help! And mommy and daddy come across the bridge. But now you have to figure out, will the bridge hold the mass of 4 elephants? So the students, again, using their triple beam balance, they're going to find the mass of those 4 elephants, and they have to decide which bridge type can actually hold up that much mass.
Mm.
And the boys will make preliminary drawings in their notebooks. They work in a group. They have to learn to compromise because they're working with peers, and they have to figure out which bridge. And once that's settled on, they start building it. And as they build, sometimes they come back, parts have come off. They have to reinforce. It's a really good learning process. And once the bridge is built, they get to paint them. And that's always a blast. They come in with their smocks on, all excited to paint their bridge and the walkway. And finally, when it's all done, then comes the time for the students to test. Well, our school has four guiding principles: dignity, curiosity, purpose, and honesty. And I tell the students, even if the bridge doesn't hold up the weight, we're not going to go boo or thumbs down. We're just going to applaud everyone for all of their efforts. We're here to support everyone's dignity. And the students take that to heart. And so we slowly put the elephants, we have them walk up the path onto the bridge, and in almost every case, it does hold the mass of the elephants, and it's a great learning experience for the children.
Definitely, definitely. And going right off of that, something that I've definitely been curious about when speaking to you in the past before too is what your process is like when it comes to creating these sort of lessons. I'm curious if you kind of start with the objective or the end goal of the lesson and sort of move backwards, or does the creative aspect kind of come into play first? I'd love to hear more about your overall procedure and process with that.
Yeah, usually when I begin with the unit, I know I'm going to be covering. From there, I make a list of the topics I'm going to be covering. Then I start to fill in the type of lessons I'm going to need to do in order to actually cover those concepts. Um, at that point, where I've made a list of the units, the lessons, I then start to fill out, oh, where can I do some hands-on projects and learning? And that I start to fill in. Very often, I spend a lot of my summer in revamping curriculum and adding lessons and more hands-on learning. Um, One of the things I've done was with my fungi unit.
Mm,
And we start off with looking at the phenomenon of a time lapse of mushrooms growing. And the students are watching and at first, like, what in the world? Oh, gosh, that's ugly. And then suddenly it hits them, oh, wait a minute, those are mushrooms. And they start to get interested in it. Then we start learning about this fascinating world of fungi. So one of the things is I teach the students actually how to draw a mushroom, how to label the parts. We learn the function of each part. We also grow our own mushrooms, which is great.
mm,
We've been doing these golden oyster mushrooms. Hopefully, they will get big enough that we can actually harvest them. And the kitchen at our school is wonderful. About chop them up, put some olive oil in the pan, a little salt and pepper. I'm getting the kids hungry.
yeah.
And they'll get a chance to actually try it, which is wonderful. They don't have to, but it's up to them. And many will try to do that. On top of that, we're not only learning about mushrooms, we're learning about mold. And one of our most, you're going to laugh, one of our most popular activities is looking at what variables will grow mold on bread. So
Mm,
every child brings in a slice of bread sealed in a plastic bag with their name on the type of bread. And we talk about, okay, what kind of variables do you want to test to see what would grow mold on the bread? And some wet, maybe pressure, dark, UV light on the heater, in the sun, in the refrigerator. So the students decide on that. We enter into our notebook the variables of testing. We put the current date on, we do whatever they want to the bread, wet it, put it in the closet, and we start in each class to examine it. Sometimes we have funny results. Those who put it on the heater sometimes wind up with toasted bread, which is kind of interesting. We had one person who brought in a ciabatta bread and it looked delicious in the beginning, but boy, that thing became 100% moldy. Others that might be from a company that puts preservatives in will take
mm,
much longer actually to grow the mold. It's been an interesting study that way. But the students are put down, okay, it's 25% mold. Oh, it's black mold, yellow mold, green mold. We put all the descriptions on it. In some cases, when we let it go a little bit longer, we can actually watch the bread being decomposing from the mold. And that's really interesting to the students. But I always insist no one touches it. I'm going to touch it. It's got to stay sealed. We've got mold spores because they've learned about how fungi reproduce. It's got to stay closed, no sniffing around it. And they're very respectful about that. Another thing, we set up an experiment with single celled fungi, which is our yeast.
mm,
And we have five flasks. One will have like sugar and water, one with sugar and a certain amount of yeast, another with a little more sugar and yeast, another with salt and yeast.
mm.
one with yeast by themselves. And we all using these measuring spoons and we put the amount in. I've heated water up using a hot plate. I'll handle it with a
Mhm.
young student. We pour in the same amount of water and then we place a balloon over the top. And what is so interesting is we're looking to see what the yeast will interact with. And if they start to learn, oh, the sugar in the yeast is producing this gas because the balloon, which was kind of flopping like this, slowly starts to go up and up and up. It starts to stand straight up and then starts to expand. And oh my gosh, the students absolutely get wild over that. It's like, oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Right.
The other thing we do is we look at all the type of many different types of fungi, and they actually get to choose their favorite, and they construct it out of modeling clay. And I take a picture of the fungi they are designing and their clay model, and I post it on our Seesaw website at our school, and the parents love it.
Awesome. That's amazing. Yeah, and going off of that in a very similar vein, the field trips that you take your students on every year have the same level of intention in terms of that hands-on approach to learning. So, in regards to that, what has your process been like for adapting these lessons outside of the classroom in relation to where you go with the kids every year?
Oh, so glad you asked. Uh, in the fall, when my youngest students are learning about extinct mammals, they will have chosen a particular mammal. They've constructed out of modeling clay. They've written a short report about it. The parents have seen it during our celebration of learning. They come in and think, wow, this is amazing. My son built this. And then we end the unit with a trip to the American Museum of Natural History. Up on their fourth floor, they have two incredible halls of extinct mammals. And the students go there with sketch pads and pencils. And their mission is to find their extinct mammal, sketch it out, and see what new information they can find out about their mammal they did not know before. And they have a blast. The parents come, we have a bunch of other teachers helping out. And then if there's more time, they get a chance to also sketch other mammals that they thought were really awesome. And it's everyone has just a great, great time. Another trip that I used to do in the past was also go to the Bronx Botanical Gardens when they have their holiday train show. And we would do that at the conclusion of our building of skyscrapers and bridges. And what I used to love about that is really a long trip for the young students. We'd be in the bus and suddenly they'd be looking out the window. Oh my God, there's a truss bridge. Miss Gilman, there's a suspension bridge. Even before we get there, they're using their knowledge to identify bridges on the way. There, once we go to the Bronx Botanical Gardens, they do a fabulous holiday train show where they've taken all natural tree materials and constructed the historic buildings and bridges in New York City. And the students just find it amazing. You know, at school we use recyclables. Here they're using tree materials, so there's kind of a connection there. And they get to see the Brooklyn Bridge, the George Washington Bridge. They see some of the bridges of Central Park, a lot of the buildings they're familiar with, and they absolutely love it. For fourth grade, at the end of our astronomy unit, we head over to the Intrepid Air and Space Museum. And a lot of people don't realize the Intrepid was used for part of the space program where they would retrieve the capsules. And that comes as quite a surprise for the students. One of the most fun parts of that trip is when they get to squeeze into two of them into the Gemini capsule. They have a model of it. And the students have read about it, seen pictures, but not until they actually go in there do they realize, oh my gosh, this is not very comfortable, is it? And they really enjoy that. And we conclude at the end of seeing one of the space shuttles.
Mm,
And the students look at this and it's like, wow, it's big. And their eyes are opening and it just makes the whole unit come alive.
amazing. So I'm curious, going right off of that too, if there's ever been moments in the classroom for you where you've almost had to pivot a certain lesson to either make it more or less hands-on, where maybe the creative aspect was uh, taking away from the actual objective, or vice versa. And I'm wondering how you've handled those sorts of instances.
Well, every class comes with unique challenges and needs, and it's really up to the educator to figure out what method's going to work best with each class. in one case, when I was doing the uh, straw rocket unit, I found that quite a few students were confused on how to use the ruler, how to measure. And I really needed to step back and say, wait a minute, let's review uh, how you use a ruler, how you measure. Some kids were confused about angles, so I brought out our straw rocket launcher and we started with, okay, here it's straight up. Anyone know what angle it is? Okay, that's 90. What about down here? Okay, we're at 0 or 180. We started reviewing angles because when I asked them to choose three angles, they're like, what are angles? What do you mean? And suddenly you had to stop and figure out the best way to get the information across. Again, if some students want to think, oh, what do you mean you don't know that? We squash that kind of negativity right away because, again, we're trying to not destroy the dignity of all students. If someone's got a question, I want to hear it. I'm sure maybe a half a dozen other students have the same question. So in some cases, I've needed to step back with the lesson, add a few so that the students can comprehend better what we're doing. In some cases, when I was doing the constellation one, for those students who really wanted a bigger challenge, I brought out the star maps and let them try to expand upon their knowledge and make it a little challenging. So, yeah, you have to be flexible.
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah. No, and that's perfect because, speaking of flexibility, I think one of the biggest questions here is how are you able to gain control over a classroom of kids of different personality types, learning types, and overall a variety of developing minds, considering that one of the biggest perks of the interdisciplinary learning experience is there's sort of a quote unquote something for everyone in creating an ideal learning environment. So I'm wondering how you're able to accomplish that.
Well, I like to think of my classroom as a community of learners. We are really there to help one another to achieve goals. So if we're deciding on a hands-on project where students are working together, I don't want them just gathering up their best buddies to be in a group. I like to mix it where you have some students who are really good writers, good with perhaps on the computer, others with artistic skills, others with math skills. I try to bring a variety of strengths together in each group. In that way, no one feels left out when doing a project. Everyone's got something to contribute. And I find that though sometimes the students who are working in the group had no idea that this child could draw like that, others like, oh my gosh, you're so good at technology, or wow, you wrote that. That is pretty amazing. So you like to think of it as a kind of celebration of learning together. I also don't want any of the students to feel intimidated. With a group that's so diverse like that, hopefully they can really work together and to achieve a common goal.
Right. Amazing, amazing. Well, Joan, thank you so much again for taking the time to talk with us about your incredible and successful mode of operation in the classroom. It really is inspiring and it's always a pleasure to speak to you. So thank you again.
Well, it's a pleasure to speak to you as well. I truly love teaching. Even though it is my 44th straight year in the classroom, I'm
Mhm.
still learning,
Yeah,
still trying to perfect my own craft. And that's going to happen as long as I'm in the field. You can't stay stagnant. So many things have changed in the 44 years. So hopefully I'm going to become an even better educator as the time goes on. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you.
definitely. No, thank you so much again. And for everyone back home to learn more about Joan and to read the articles we've written for her and to listen to our previous podcast, you could click the links in the description. Once again, I'm Eric Mastrota, and this has been Their Journey, a sit down with the National Digest. Thank you and take care, everybody.